Welcome, everyone. I'm Bruce Eckfeldt. I'm going to be your moderator and host today. Welcome to the LinkedIn Live. I'm going to introduce our guests in just a second, but a couple of little things for our audience today. So our topic, this is an interesting one, thought leadership marketing, building influence that drives growth. This is an interesting one for me. I work with a lot of founders that are going through growth stories as well as exiting their businesses and figure out what they're going to do next. And I find this whole leadership marketing and building a platform is being super helpful and super important. Being an authority in your space can be really helpful. So we're going to talk about all that. If you are on LinkedIn and watching the live stream there, go ahead and put comments, questions into the event page there, and we will watch that as we go and try to work those questions and comments in to the conversation. We're also streaming on YouTube. If you're on YouTube, jump over to LinkedIn if you want to leave a comment and question. I'm not going to be watching the YouTube comments here. So jump over to LinkedIn if you want to leave a question for us during the program. If you're watching the replay on any platform, either LinkedIn or YouTube or anywhere else that we put this, go ahead and leave a comment or question there. I'll watch the comments and questions over the coming days and weeks to make sure that we can get back to folks there. So if you're watching the replay, go ahead and do that there. Let me introduce our guests, and then we'll get into our content. First up, I have Jerry Nillens. She is a marketing communication strategist. She's also president of Trade Press Services. She has decades of experience working with business owners, helping them enhance their visibility and credibility through effectively thought leadership strategies. With that, Jerry, welcome to the program. Oh, and I think you got to unmute to hear you. There we go. Yeah. Thanks for joining it today. Next up, I've got Dr. Jeremy Weiss. He is a co-founder of Rise 25. And that is a company that assists B2B businesses in building strategic partnerships, generating ROI through podcasting. And I've actually been on his podcast. I had a great time there. And he has extensive experience in content marketing and has helped numerous entrepreneurs establish themselves as thought leaders. With all that, Jeremy, welcome to the program.
Bruce, thanks for having me.
Yeah. So why don't we start with just kind of a general question of kind of defining thought leadership. I think, we throw around these terms a lot, and I think people probably have different expectations or different assumptions. Let's kind of ground it for each of us. Jeremy, like, how do you define thought leadership in kind of today's world?
In the podcasting front, I kind of categorize two types of episodes. One is a thought leadership episode, which is someone's thought leadership and then their team's thought leadership, right? So I kind of broaden it a little bit. It could be the team's thought leadership, not just mine. And obviously there's external interviews. And so for me, there's multiple kind of categories of thought leadership. And so we break down different, it could be a thought leadership, it could be someone's origin story, right? It could be, specific secret sauce behind their company and how they think. It could be we think of it kind of like a tear down episode, which means like, okay, like if you're a website, person, you pull up other people's websites and you just point out what you like and what's maybe some mistakes they're making. So I kind of think of thought leadership for all the many categories to thought leadership. And, the biggest one I like is just the frequently asked questions, right? Which is, for me, a thought leadership should save someone time, energy, and money by doing a thought leadership, whether it's an article or social media or podcast. So I have a lot of thoughts on thought leadership in general. Views, you can tell.
You're thought leadership and thought leadership. I love it.
Yeah, exactly. We have an episode we did on 10 different types of thought leadership. It's a very meta episode, a thought leadership episode on thought leadership.
Yeah. Jerry, what's your how do you kind of define this space for yourself?
A little bit more academically.
Okay.
Yeah. Go ahead. It's a strategy and a practice of the development and sharing of high value information. So and the purpose is to influence how and what people think, which enables them to make better decisions, whether those are buying decisions about products or services or decisions about career, family, or other aspects of their life. I think it means sharing original ideas, demonstrated experience and expertise, and the goal really, and this answers the question why do it, is to become a recognized expert. It's a way of building credibility, name recognition, and visibility in the marketplace.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I agree with both of you on these. The one piece that I would add here is I have found, but both personally and with a lot of folks I've worked with, that this kind of strategy element of thought leadership, meaning I find really successful thought leaders have some kind of opinion or some kind of angle. And it's not just that they're really smart or they know a lot of things or they know a lot of people or they're kind of recognized, but there's some kind of angle that you have, some kind of different way of thinking about it or perspective that becomes unique and valuable. Because I just find in strategy, I think it was Porter who had the definition, we don't compete to win, we compete to be different, right? Like, how do you create a differentiated position in the market? I find thought leadership can be a great one there. When you have a slightly different way of looking at something that might get someone to be like, ooh, yeah, I hadn't thought of that. Like, that's interesting. I want to hear more. You're giving me something I can't get in the general kind of literature or the general knowledge base that's out there. So in terms of,
edgy,
yeah, go ahead.
Something that's really edgy,
yeah.
And you have to be willing to be criticized for it.
Well, in fact, I think that's a good sign. A good sign that you're a good thought leadership is that you do get criticism.
Exactly.
Yeah. Jeremy, how do
I mean, I think of thought leadership when you say that with the angle. I mean, I am a huge student of direct response copywriting, and I did a series on my podcast for like 6 months where I went to have some of the top direct response marketers and copywriters on the planet. And they are looking in their, for whether it's selling online or offline for a specific angle, like what's the hook that will get people hooked into the product or service or whatever it is. But I guess I think of it as just trying to be helpful, meaning like, I don't want to reinvent the wheel. I look at what questions are people asking me or someone else already and going about answering them. And I'll probably, I may have a different take on some of them. Maybe I don't have a different take on some of them. Right. And so I think of what are the questions people are already asking instead of me coming out and saying, here's what I think. I'm like, well, if I answer what people are asking, there's a need out there. There's a want. I'm servicing people who have that specific frustration or whatever it is.
I guess how much do you feel thought leadership is kind of producing content or producing opinion and pushing information out into the world versus this more of replying or engaging with questions and with kind of real time, because I see a lot of thought leaders that can produce a lot of content, right? But at some point it feels like I'm just getting kind of dumped with more and more content. And I always find it more engaging when it's kind of the panel discussions or, okay, you're actually able to field live questions and, respond to things in clear, intelligent, useful ways, as opposed to just keep kind of dumping content out into the universe. I guess, what's your take on kind of what makes you thought leadership in terms of creating content or being a presence from a sort of conversational point of view? Well, Jerry, why don't you give us your take on that one?
I think it's a matter of defining what thought leadership isn't.
Okay,
so
let's do that.
Thought leadership isn't promotional content. So it isn't advertising. It isn't direct mail. It isn't newsletters. It isn't case studies. It's not slide decks or video or website content. I don't think that's thought leadership. So I think thought leadership really focuses on pain points. As Jeremy was saying, what are people asking about? What are they talking about? What challenges are they having? And thought leadership provides answers to and solutions to those questions.
Bruce, it's funny. We don't call it this, but we have a thought leadership meeting every Wednesday. we don't call it a thought leadership, but really what we're doing is we have a ClickUp board. We use ClickUp for project management, and our customer support team goes and enters in questions that we get into that ClickUp board. And then we move them into different categories. Are we going to record an episode? So we're meeting on that call every Wednesday to record a thought leadership episode. And so, okay, did we already answer this? We just move it to that. Did we not answer it? And do we find it's important enough to do a thought leadership? And then, or not, right? And so over, doing this over the past decade, most of the stuff we've answered. So then we may not record anything. But like Jerry was saying, looking at what are people already asking us, or we may have saw something on LinkedIn and like, oh, you know what? We have a totally different thought on that question or how people are asking, and then put it on the board. So it could be coming from directly from the questions people are asking from customer support, or something one of the team members, sees on social media as well. But addressing those specific, questions is important, and it's good. It's obviously good from our thought authority, and as Jerry was saying, credibility, but it's also good for SEO. If you're creating content on it and you're answering those questions, it's good from SEO or whatever they call the AI version of it now, GEO, I don't know, whatever it is. And we're finding that people are finding us they're searching like ChatGPT for certain things, and it's not like we haven't done anything different. We're just answering questions that people have.
That's a great strategy. I mean, the way I create most of my content, probably 90% of my content, is I have a little notes app on my phone, and when I'm talking with CEOs, whether they're prospects or clients I've worked with, and things, or I'm in meetings with clients, and something comes up, a question they asked, or kind of some struggle, I just make a note. I kind of write down a couple of words around, like how do you creating a role scorecard for a CEO. Yeah, there's probably some interesting things there, right? So I keep this list, and then when I go, I write for Inc. And I basically go through that list, and I just find topics that came up in those conversations. And my thinking is like, well, if this CEO is asking this, there's probably 10 others that are asking this. So I drive all my content based on conversations that I've had, and then I often will send that person the link, the Inc. article after it's written, as kind of, hey, look, I know we had that conversation the other week. We wrote this article on this. I thought you might like it. And then they're like, oh, this is great. And then they start sharing it around and things like that.
Well, it's exactly what they asked. Yeah. So it's perfect, right? This is exactly, you asked about scorecards. Like I just did a whole article on it, and it answers a specific question. Yeah.
And what happens is that I'll get random emails from folks being like, just get out of my head. How are you thinking about this? Like, this article was perfect for what I was doing, because that's it, because it's in their heads. And if one CEO is thinking about it, the chances are there's several other that are thinking that too. So yeah, I like that whole being in the moment and answering and engaging with questions that they're actually on your prospects' minds. How does one become thought leader, right? So we talk about this, the desire to become a thought leader. Like, what's the process? What's the journey? What are the phases? Like, how have you worked with folks to actually get them into some kind of thought leadership status? Jerry, why don't we start with you on this?
Well, I think you have to understand the components of a successful thought leadership program. And the first thing is to remember that content is strategic in nature. It's educational, it informs, it solves problems. And then you have to do some research. What are people talking about? What are they asking about? Who's the market? What their pain points are, their challenges, their needs. And then I think you identify the right formats. Are they articles? Are they white papers? Are they blogs? Are they books? And then the right channels. Websites, podcasts, which Jeremy, of course, can talk about, webinars, trade shows, speaking engagements, and then your frequency. How often do you produce content, and also measuring the success of that content, having the right data gathering mechanisms in place. So I think it's using all of those components and putting together a plan, because it's really, in the end, it comes down to the quality of the messaging, the frequency, and also the channels that you use. So I think those are the three main components.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember I had a coach a while ago who we kind of went through this. It was kind of a marketing strategy coach, and she ran me through a little bit of this diagnostic of this checklist she had. And it was interesting because I think I spent a lot of time thinking about my target and my prospects and what kind of content they like to digest. And like I put a lot into that side of it. But what she got me to do is actually think through, what do I like to do? Like, what do I enjoy doing and what am I good at? And it was interesting. One of the reasons I got into podcasting, because I was like, well, I like writing and I've written a lot, but I do find it, it's work. Whereas interviewing and podcasting, it was easy. It was actually fun, right? Like I didn't have to do a whole lot of prep. It was very conversational. It was easy, great content. So it was just interesting to think a little bit about, okay, well, what are my kind of skills and capabilities and where do I kind of naturally go into flow and how can you leverage that? Because I think a lot of times people are just kind of forcing a square peg into a round hole where they're like, oh, well, everyone else does this. I should do this. I should write white papers, right? Because that's what everyone else is. But if you hate writing white papers, like that's not going to go very well. Like it's got to be a fit for you. Jeremy, I'm curious because
I feel like it's similar with like working out, right? If someone's like, I want to get in shape and work out. Well, I hear people should be doing, like, if you don't like doing it, you're not going to do it. And then you're not going to wake up excited about it. And so I'm the same, like my background's in biochemistry, right? And so if you asked me to write an article, I would write one every 10 years. I do not like it. And that's what, same with you, Bruce, I took to podcasting, which is like, I could have conversations all day. And so I've been putting out 2 episodes a week for over a decade. And that's like 2 full blog post articles. I mean, obviously I'm not doing the writing on that, but have a team do that. But yeah, it's what I enjoy doing. So it's the medium, as Jerry mentioned, right? That's just, I took to it. Some people love writing. Yeah. They don't want to get and talk to anyone. Maybe they're more introverted, right? And they just want to write articles and do research. That's not my personality. But I kind of, when you asked that question, I think I thought of, I don't know, maybe both of you know who said it. It's like, if you want to hire friendly customer support people, then hire someone who's friendly, right? And so like when I think of thought leadership, I think of someone who's like actually been doing this stuff for 10, 20 or 30 years, who's an expert, right? And they are a thought leader, but they may not be sharing their thought leadership with the world. So they may be best kept secret. They may like just have not put their thoughts out in the world, but they're just a practitioner. They've been doing it for so long. And so I just look at, they're already an expert. Now they just have to share it in a medium that makes sense, because the people we work with, it's like some of them, they've been doing this for 30 years, but if you search them on YouTube, there's nothing about them. I'm like, how is that possible? You should be sharing with the world. And some people who woke up that morning who had an opinion on the matter,
they're ranking number 1.
Knows nothing is sharing something. So, because when someone pushes back against, well, do I really know enough? And usually those are the people that are the experts, and the people who aren't sometimes are sharing stuff. I'm like, so wait, I'll pull up on YouTube. Like this person, has been probably doing this for a week and they're sharing thoughts. So, get over yourself and start sharing your expertise so people can learn from you. So I think it's a mentality of sometimes getting people over the hump of, you do know a lot and you should be sharing.
A, you probably know a lot more than you think you know. And B, people want to hear it, right? There's an audience. I mean, you're not going to fill, a stadium of 80,000 people necessarily to listen to your speech, but all it takes is a couple of dozen people to actually really have, some impact on, and that's influence, right? Like you can have a really strong, influential thought leadership platform with, you don't need to reach hundreds of thousands of people.
I think to your point, like you find someone as an expert and you just choose the medium that fits the best for sharing your expertise.
Jerry, what are some of the other kind of tools that you see thought leaderships use? I mean, thought leaders use. So we talked about blogs, we talked about articles. What else is kind of in your kind of toolbox or things that you help companies with in terms of establishing themselves as thought leaders?
Well, we help them create the content, and then we help them use the content afterwards to make sure that it just doesn't sit on the shelf someplace.
Yeah.
So whether they use the content on their website, whether they use it in email campaigns, whether they use it as part of a media kit, whether they use it as part of a pitch sheet for Jeremy's podcast, we help them really take advantage of the exposure that they're getting that builds that credibility.
Yeah. I wanted to ask a little bit on the thought leadership, particularly for founder CEOs, inside their companies. I think this is one that I certainly struggled with it when I was in my company, was kind of being the thought leadership for me individually versus the company, and how I kind of manage that. And certainly when I exited my business, like I had to do a lot of rethinking of what was my personal platform, what was my kind of individual professional platform versus the company platform, and how did I want to navigate that. And I in retrospect, there were a lot of things I could have done better while I was in the company to kind of create that. I had to do a lot of work post exit. But what are how do you help founders particularly, or leaders inside companies, with this kind of balance between, are we doing this to help the business, or are we doing this to help you professionally? Like, how do you tease that apart? I don't know, Jeremy, let's hear from you on this one.
Well, I'm curious, from your experience as well, what differentiated?
Mm-hmm.
When I see the leader, I see them be able to kind of educate people, share their thought leadership at scale, which obviously is, as Jerry mentioned, is credibility and authority, right? They're also building their individual credibility and authority in specific spaces as well. So I kind of see them going hand in hand, as far as, doing both at the same time. And I guess it depends on what the person wants to do after. Okay. So, I think that's a big, because if someone I know someone who ran an agency, they sold the agency, and then they want to do more like coaching, right? And so it'd be probably different if they want to do the agency and they want to get into a SaaS business or whatever it is, right? Because then they'd have to demonstrate whatever thought leadership is specific to that industry, in addition to how it's going to help their clients, right? That's how I see it different. Like the questions that you're answering in your thought leadership, right? Which ones overlap between, okay, where someone wants to go, and also where they're at, and what questions are people asking within the authority and credibility of that specific company they're helping, So it's a tough one, because maybe yours is a good example of what does someone do afterwards,
which is what happened with me. And I find this with a lot of founders, is that they get so caught up in their company. And my company we were software development services. We did strategy around basically application design, legacy migration work. So it was very technical. And I had a lot of influence over the market in terms of being a thought leader in the technical services space. But at my core, what I really was doing is helping with change management and driving innovation inside these companies. And when I sold my business, I kind of had to step out of the pure technical space and more focus on kind of the general business innovation and how do we drive change in organizations, regardless of the industry. And so it took me a little while to I almost had to kind of unsell myself as the tech guy and reposition myself as strategy and innovation guy. And I could use, 90% of what I did in the business was that, but the way it was packaged when I was thought leader in the business side was very technical. I had to it took about a year or two for me to kind of get out from under that label, and to leverage everything that I was doing there, but repackage it as more around strategy and innovation for growth companies. So, and this is where I think if I would have figured that out, if I knew that's what I was going to do earlier, I kind of probably spent a year or two prior to start to build that platform a little bit. So I wasn't kind of having to shed everything and then start over, kind of start from a low level and start to build it back up. I probably could have gotten a lot of those pieces in place prior.
It's like tough though. You just have to do it to figure it out. And also, I think just flexing the muscle of doing thought leadership in general gets you closer as you do more content. So it's a tough one. Jerry, go ahead.
Yeah, Jerry.
I was going to say, I think Bruce hit the nail on the head when he talked about packaging and repackaging. While you're with a company, I think personal branding and professional branding have to be consistent.
Mm-hmm.
I think your personal brand has to carry over to your professional brand, and there's a transparency there, and people get to know you, they trust you, they like you, they want to hear what you have to say. But you have a core set of knowledge that you're sharing. When you exit and decide that you want to do something else, while you can tap into that previous experience, you do have to repackage it.
Yeah.
And figure out what you want to be when you grow up. Sort of the new you.
the new and improved version.
There you go.
What are some mistakes people made? I'm kind of curious what you've seen out there in terms of missteps or things that people have, either just done poorly or haven't taken full advantage of. What are some kind of little nuggets of advice you can give folks? Jerry, I'm kind of curious to start with you on this one.
I think inconsistency.
Okay.
Lack of clarity of thought. When people rely on ChatGPT or AI for their content development, it's not authentic.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't come from the heart. It doesn't come from actual experience. And I think that's a big mistake. So, going back to what I said earlier, the quality of the messaging, the frequency with which you put content out, one article does not a campaign make.
Yeah.
And the channels that you decide to use, where do your target audiences hang out?
Mm-hmm.
So you have to know that. And I think there are a lot of companies whose leaders don't have the answers to those three questions, or they're not aware that those are the considerations that they need to be asking.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the whole, where are your prospects? Where are they residing, or where are they active, open to a potential buying conversation? And I find a lot of folks, create great content, but just put it into the wrong channel, or they put it in a channel where buyers are not in the mood, right? It's not where they go for that kind of information and open to start a conversation or an engagement that way. Jeremy, what have you seen in terms of missteps?
I mean, the biggest mistake I see is people just not doing it. I mean, in general,
talking about it and not taking action. That's kind of light.
I'd rather have people doing something than nothing, but also, beyond that, we talked about it earlier, which is they're talking about what they want and not specifically what the target audience or the people in their universe are asking.
Uh-huh.
Right. And so if that's the case, maybe people care, maybe they won't care. But if the target audience is asking those things, then they're going to care. Like you said with the scorecard, like if they ask that question, they want to know the answer. Yeah. And so focusing on that. And, I think there's a time and a place for it. Like some people may share about personally, like what's going on. I don't think that's a mistake per se, but maybe focusing too much on like, here's what I'm doing on my family vacation. I mean, that's not thought leadership, right? And so maybe they're sharing and they're thinking, well, this is thought leadership, but it's more just sharing what's going on personally. Yep. Thought leadership, I consider in the specific industry. I mean, some people will take that and relate to, I was just on a trip to wherever, Thailand, and that could be turned into thought leadership, but they're just kind of talking about their life that has nothing to do relating back to the needs and wants and pains of the audience.
Yeah, it's interesting. I struggled with that one, right? Like I think when I first, it's probably about 5-6 years ago when I started producing more content and I was putting a lot of stuff out there on particularly LinkedIn and YouTube and stuff. I was very academic, and a lot of the feedback I got was like, this is really smart stuff, but particularly as a coach advisor, like it's such a personal relationship you have with a CEO or kind of the people that I work with, that they wanted to know more about, okay, what do you like otherwise? And so I started posting more stuff around, I do all these crazy outdoor adventure stuff. I do this climbing and we have these big expeditions. And I started posting more about that stuff. And it was fascinating to see how engaged people got in it. Because while, yes, it was personal, right? It wasn't directly related to the coaching work I do, the fact is that there's themes and connections to all that stuff, like setting goals and dealing with discipline and doing plans and strategies, dealing with risk, right? It turns out that you can weave a lot of that stuff in, and then people do want to get to know you. All right. It's this world today where, we want to kind of get a little behind the scenes on stuff. Like, people don't want just super polished academic stuff. They want to see real people on in terms of the content. So, and it's been a bit of a balance, every once in a while I'll post things on my kids and things like that. And I talk about being a father, and there's some connections there. Sometimes it's just kind of funny things that happen in my life, but I've always, it took me a while to kind of do that. And I think that's a big struggle for a lot of folks. I don't know.
I mean, the mistakes I've made is kind of relates back to what I said, is like not doing it.
Yeah.
Like, I just, for the podcast, usually feature other people. And so for me, that's more comfortable than sharing thought leadership. Right. And I'm bored of what I have to say because I like hearing what other people have to say. So not doing it for me has been a big mistake, for sure. But I love that weaving people do want to hear personal stuff from people and get to know you, for sure.
Jerry,
I think that's part of the buying process, is when people know you and they trust you and they like you.
Yeah.
And it's that connection that's so important, because if you can't connect with people, what is there?
Very true. Very true.
It's like connection gives purpose and meaning to life, to business, to
and we are relational people, right? Like, we engage through connecting with folks. So we're gonna hit time here. I'm sure we have another hour worth of content in this, but we're gonna hit time. I'm gonna make sure people have contact information. Jeremy, if people want to find out more about what you're doing, the work that you're doing today, what's the best way to get that information?
Yeah, I mean, we're on LinkedIn, I think, right now. If people are listening, maybe on YouTube, but Jeremy Weisz, Weisz. I'm very, very actually on LinkedIn a lot. So you can go there, and my podcast is inspiredinsider.com. You can connect with me there. We have a great episode with Bruce and on there as well. So connect with me there.
Awesome.
As well.
Perfect. And Jerry, if people want to get a hold of you, what's the best way to get that information?
Call me, 805-496-8850, or if you prefer email, it's Jerry, Gerri, at tradepressservices.com.
Awesome. And I love the phone number. People don't use phone numbers enough these days. Good work. If people want to get a hold of me, just bruce@eckfeldt.com is my email. Eckfeldt.com is my URL, and obviously on LinkedIn. Thank you, both of you, for joining us today. I really appreciate it. Thank you for all the people joining the program, for watching either live or on the replays. Again, if you have questions or comments, throw it on the LinkedIn page. We'll get to those over the coming days and weeks. So, Jerry, thank you so much for taking the time today. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.